Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. This is the Dynatron software panel, one of the great highlights of the show. A lot of good friends here I see on the panel. Our wonderful, wonderful friend and colleague Maureen Martin from Dynatron is with us, is going to be hosting and moderating the panel. First, Maureen, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you, Ted. It's always great to be here.
Great to see everybody. I see some friends I haven't seen in a while. Stephen, great to see you. Mike and Kim. All right, I'm going to go ahead, Maureen. I'm going to step off into the green room. I'll come back on the other side near the end. And Maureen, the show is yours.
Thank you, Ted. Always great. So it is my privilege to introduce to you our panel today. So with me, we have Mike Weldon, and Mike is an industry consultant for the Center for Performance Improvement. We have Stephen Hill. Stephen is the Fixed Ops Director from I-10 Toyota, part of the Cummings Auto Group. And then we have a special guest with us today, Kim Skovold. Kim is actually one of our client performance coaches for Dynatron. And so I'm just super excited to bring this panel together. Being that it's Fixed Ops Week, we just dug right into Fixed Ops and brought some really unique perspectives. And I'm excited about the conversation. We've kind of titled this panel to be Fixed Ops Excellence. We're going to talk about cutting through the data fog, margin erosion, and the forced choice myth. And so we're not really going to talk about best practices, which we've been known for at Dynatron. We will weave some in, but we're actually going to kind of challenge the industry and what we're thinking is working in fixed operations and what's actually happening kind of what we call underneath the surface. So we know what the stakes are right now. We know that margins are under sustained pressure. They're not cyclical. We have something that's impacting us every day. Fixed Ops is being asked to carry more of the business, really becoming that profit engine in the dealership. Yet most dealers still don't have clear visibility into the performance. So we're going to really have three different tensions we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about data fog. I have never had a dealer that told me they did not have enough data. What they challenge is having visibility into the data. We're going to talk a little bit about margin erosion. It's happening quietly and daily, and both some of it is visible and some of it is hidden. And then we're going to talk about what we call the forced choice dilemma, that profitability versus retention. Often we talk about it's got to be one or the other, and we would say at Dynatron, no, it needs to be that perfect price of not leaving anything on the table, but having superior customer retention. So Mike, I'm going to first bring it out to you. We work with over 4,000 dealerships, and one of the things we often hear is people say, we think we know, but we don't. So let's start here. Let's start with what's something that most operators believe is under control, but it's absolutely isn't.
Well, I'll put it in a nutshell and then I'll back into it. They think they know the score, but most of them don't know the score. Most shops, they say, hey, it's running at capacity, therefore we're doing great. And they look at the financial report at the end of the month and they think everything's rosy because they hit their margins, but they miss out on the things that may be impacting those margins that they need to move back into and break down. Technician performance, the rider performance, the retention aspect of the business. A lot of us don't look at that. And, in my travels and when I was in stores, you have to train to that, and everybody needs to be cognizant of the ebb and flows of the business. Otherwise, if they don't, they can't make those quick adjustments that potentially could impact the outcome of a month or a year.
It kind of leads to a follow up with you of what are dealers measuring that actually hides problems instead of revealing them?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and they look at the gross numbers. That's what the end all is, and most of it, because they're looking at how to sustain their business, but they don't really understand how that's generated.
Love it. Interesting. And where does the reporting sometimes create comfort instead of action?
We're doing okay. Oh, we're better than the guy down the street. I work with a manufacturer, and they send out ranking reports, and I call that the tallest midget report because they're comparing themselves against themselves, which doesn't really necessarily tell you
Mhm.
that we've got a problem that we need to address.
Love it. That really kind of comes into we got to understand what's happening in the market with our like franchise and also looking at our aftermarket data, right? So all of that comes into that real business decision making. Love it. Okay. I'm going to open it up to Stephen and Kim. Stephen, how about you first? Anything you'd like to add on to what Mike just said?
Mike nailed it. It's we get so complacent with just the way things have always been, the reports where it's at. It is amazing how many people don't understand how to break down the reports and what the information is actually given us. So once you start digging into it, it becomes a rabbit hole that you realize, okay, I've got some holes I need to plug. But once you do, now you're maximizing the profitability and the overall retention of your guests. Happy employees lead to happy guests.
Love it. Thank you. Kim, how about you?
I'll piggyback. I agree with both Mike and Stephen. I think change is also the most difficult, right? You get to back to what Stephen said, complacent and comfortable, and any movement can feel strange and different. So this is the way we've always done it motto comes into play here a lot.
And really kind of what y'all three talked about have to work kind of in unison with each other, right? To still drive the gross profit, still drive the retention, and really look at how you're using that reporting to coach your teams. And you need it at your fingertip, which I really love. I know that's something we've talked a lot about around compliance reporting, around how do we really shine a light on, is it a knowing issue or is it a doing issue? Which then takes change management and it takes really the whole leadership team supporting. I love it. All right, well, let's kind of move into something around the data fog. We kind of call sometimes that's a decision paralysis. We have the data, so why can't we act? So, Stephen, I'm going to ask you. Everyone says that they're data driven. I think it's pretty much a motto on everything that we see these days if you walked around NADA. So, why are so few dealerships actually making confident decisions right now?
It's twofold as far as what I can see. We either have bad data, outdated data, or if you have the good data, you don't necessarily know how to read it and how to work that into how to make the business more successful. We we get so used to looking at reports, or I hear it all the time, I'm too busy to really do that. So they rely on an outside source to feed back to them what the data really means. And unfortunately, you have to know the demographics of your area. You have to know your customer base. You have to know your employee base if you're going to make the intelligent decisions in order to maximize what it is that you're doing. And this is universal. It's not just fixed ops, it's in any business. You need to understand these things. So while the data is there and available, even if it's really good data, if the individual doesn't understand how to maximize that, it really is useless until they do.
You mentioned to me how important that is when you're working with your coach, right? Is to be able to really take that data and work together to underline what is it we need to do to change behavior, but also how do we reinforce when something's going right. I love that. Well, let's do a follow-up to that. What's something you couldn't see before that changed how you operate now that you can see it?
We've talked about the erosion of our margins. And when you're able to just look at the information, let's say off of a statement, it isn't broken down into a way that you can see what makes up which component. So when we can understand why are we letting the profit just go out the door? Is it a coupon? Is it errors when the advisor is putting together an estimate? Is it our parts department inventory isn't quite on point? Once we know where those errors are at, now you can fix it. And once you're able to fix and address those errors at hand, now you can start looking down the road. Because, and I probably beat this one to death in my meetings, but I tell my advisors and technicians, stack tomorrow's money. We need to fix today's issues, but you've got to focus on stacking tomorrow's money. And we cannot even focus on down the road if we have all these gaping holes in our process right here in front of us.
Love it. Thank you. You talk about the data. So what's the moment when data stops being useful and starts becoming noise?
When there is just too much of it. You may have it coming out of your ears, and now you just, I mean, we've all been there. You're working on a paper, a project, whatever it is, and the computer just all starts looking the same. You're just not retaining it anymore. You're just not grasping what that material is. And that's what it's like when you just have too much data in front of you is just going to become an overload. And now it's whether we're thinking it too much, we're not thinking it enough, we just get desensitized to it. You're not able to be your sharpest.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. So, Kim, what would you like to add on to what Stephen said there?
I think you're right. I think paralysis by analysis is a true thing that can happen. And dealers, when you feel overwhelmed, or a person that feels overwhelmed, then you don't know where to go or what action needs to be taken. So when there's so much data and you don't know what is important versus maybe these things can wait, it's difficult to decipher what you should attack first.
Thank you. Mike, how about you?
Well, I think, yeah, I think sometimes we throw out a lot of numbers and we really don't know where they're coming from. I use an analogy, the KISS method, which keep it simple, Sally. Now I changed that and I cleaned that up.
You changed it because I used it 40 years ago.
Yeah,
It was a little different.
and Stephen basically hit the nail on the head. But I think what you have to really break it down is you have to start looking at your work mix. So the thing that really is important is not the gross you're generating, is what type of work are you doing, and then you build your business model around what it's going to take to hit that number that you need to hit, and that's based all on shop production.
Yeah.
So you can back your way into the numbers any way you want, but the best way to do it is by performance.
You know, we talk a lot about that, right? I mean, back in my day, 40 years ago, if you were a Ford guy, your dealerships were all Ford. And now you have all of these groups with different franchises with different work mixes.
Yep.
And also, really, how do we look at bringing that data? So, Stephen, that makes me very excited. I'm going to go back to the product department because our new performance hub that's right on that front screen when you come into ROI, into the analytics platform, was really for that reason. Because you can slice and dice data anyway, but how do you make it so that it really draws attention, tells you what you need to do today, what are my action items, and make it happen? So love it. That's great. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about margin erosion. I'm going to go to Kim. And Kim, I mentioned, you've got a unique background in what you come to with Dynatron, as an MBA, having been a service director in a big store in the Bay Area. And now you work with over 60 different dealerships that you have a privilege to be a client performance coach. So we could always have talked about like margin erosion, what's happening. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts is what we used to talk about, right? Because It's not only CP, it's effective labor rate, it's looking at all these things, whether it be warranty, internal. So let's talk about margin leakage specifically. So where does margin leakage happen that you see the most in dealerships due to pricing inconsistency, and where does that show up in real life in the dealerships?
The most areas that I see this happening is the improper use of operation codes. Op codes are what every dealership needs to understand is how they check and monitor health, right? You go to the doctor, you have a symptom, it is documented, and that is how disease prevention is created. It's the same in a dealership world. How does one create a shop that is effective based on the illness of the vehicle that's coming in? And it's the operation codes. So what we find the most when I'm looking and working with my dealerships are the profit leakage starts with the inconsistencies with how we measure what we're doing. If we do not have proper operation codes in place, we do not know where to measure or where we're going to go with these measurements.
Love it. So how much damage does discounting actually do versus what we think?
So there's an invisible discounts, I like to call them, with the dealerships. The things that we think are not affecting us because we can't see them. It's the $2 here, the $50 there, the adjustments based off of how an advisor feels a price should be because the customer is telling them of their woes. And it's important of consistency because we're battling something in the automotive space that we've battled forever, which is the trust. And pricing, even if you're giving a discount, leads to mistrust because then the pricing consistency is not there. If you and I have the same vehicle and we start talking and I say, Maureen, what did you pay? And I paid a different price. Even if I paid less, it's still not going to feel good. And ultimately, the feeling of the customer matters with their return. But you're being able to document that erosion is also important because in the event you have a coupon and you can't measure the effectiveness of that coupon, is it worth issuing a coupon on these services? Is it giving you that ROI? Pun intended for Dynatron on the ROI. Is it giving you that ROI that you expect from a coupon? And now how do you measure that? Again, back to the operation codes, back to utilizing the right tools so you can measure, are we pricing our tools, our services effectively, and are our service advisors executing the price we intend?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, right? Because that was a big part of Dremel going
Yes.
into Dynatron is to be able to look at the labor categorization, look at the 3Cs and the parts
Yes.
categorization, because it doesn't matter what privilege of meetings I get to attend in the industry, using proper opcodes is one of the number one issues that impacts the fixed operation side of the business to be able to manage and to grow it. So thank you for that. Mike, I know you and I have talked a lot about this particular area, so I'm going to come to you next to really comment on what Kim had shared.
Well, I read an article that should resonate with anybody that is tuning in that 12 dealers are set to lose $12,000 per customer by them defecting within the first 2 years of ownership because we are not clear on pricing. Sometimes we shoot from the hip, and we need to understand, and that's why we need to break it out where you have your maintenance pricing, which is going to be at a competitive rate, which you should have, that should stand out. And you're going to have your repair pricing, which most independents don't want that business because it's time consuming. And then you have the new business that we're now getting into is EV. And that's different, but you need to price everything that's relative to what you're doing. And so many times we just throw it into a big basket and we try to hold the same thing, which, I think Kim stated that's where we lose customers because we lose trust. We're not trustworthy, and because we're not clear, and we need to be clear and concise.
We talk about the quarterly mystery shopping that we do, and a big part of it is not just for the customer, but it's to build that confidence with the service advisor that we are perfectly priced, right? Because as Kim said, that trust, and when I'm in there, I need to be able to tell them everything and feel very confidently about that.
We got to try to do that.
Yeah, Stephen, I'm going to come to you to comment in, and I want to circle back to Kim on one other thing I'd love her to comment on.
Well, I am going to go and take it a different avenue, but the same topic is we take away the value of what we do and what we provide. And unfortunately, we constantly are devaluing, whether it's an insecure advisor that isn't quite confident, whether it's on the pricing or what it is that's being done. It's on the, it's only this, you can wait till next service. Whatever it happens to be, we're constantly devaluing, and the discounting goes right into that. If we're giving away a $5 or $10, there needs to be a reason why. Why are we just letting go of all the value of what we do? We have the best trained technicians, being factory dealerships. We have all the state-of-the-art equipment. We have the all-in-one package, but yet we're constantly just devaluing everything that we built up here, and that is being shared over to the guest. And when you don't have that consistent pricing, when you don't have a valid reason as to why, you can't even begin to fix it because it's already spreading out there. So we need to figure out, how do we get that value back in? And usually it starts with our people, training, educating, and allowing them to feel the value in what it is we do.
I love it. We talk about value a lot, don't we, Kim? You know, when you really take a look at it, is if otherwise the only thing you're talking about is price versus the value of what we bring at our dealerships, which is incredible. You know, Kim, I really think about what you have said in this particular topic because we know how incredibly important it is. What are some of the things you're seeing that dealerships that really get it right? What are some of the things that they're doing differently to really overcome these pricing inconsistencies?
I think the dealers that are getting it right, the first thing is they own it. They understand this is a true problem throughout our industry, and they're going to own and take full ownership of what it means to set that price with their team. The other thing that I see is they are also making sure they're looking at our data. The reports that come in on that dashboard, it's clear, it gives them a layout for them to follow, a playbook essentially of how do I identify areas of opportunity that are being missed or areas of opportunities that we're losing our dollars based off of pricing. So I think the dealers that are getting it right are taking full ownership and then holding their teams accountable, right? They're looking at the data, looking at the reports, and then following through with their team. And back to what Stephen said, educating our advisors, making sure that they understand the impact of their $1 change. The $1 actually trickles down to many dollars. And so making sure that everyone understands their part to play in it as a team is important. And the dealers that are doing it right are making sure they're operating as a team and not as an individual.
And all of those decisions have an impact when they go to do a warranty filing, right? You got to have the consistency and not the erosion on the effective labor rate. Love it. All right, we're going to do 2 quick lightning rounds, which I just love. So I'm going to come to each one of you. So we kind of talked about breaking the forced choice dilemma. And what we define is that there's always this tug of war, perception wise, that you either have profitability or client retention. You don't have both. We at Dynatron would say absolutely not. It is in the middle. It is looking at both of them, and we call it top box, right? So finding that perfect price by using market data, both like franchise that you have in a virtual performance group, looking at those mystery shops that are done every quarter. But it's really about how we make sure that we're in the right place and then use that in coaching and developing and delivering those services to the clients, which all of you have said, right? As Stephen says, the guest himself needs to feel it. So what I want to do is I want to kind of ask each one of you. So let's address the elephant in the room, first of all, because one, let's just say it, talk about it. Do you believe improving profitability hurts retention? And what's the difference between raising prices and pricing correctly? Let's see. I'm going to go with, how about Mike first?
Boy, that's a good one.
That's a good question. First, you got to do a yes or a no, and then you're going to give us an answer.
Yes. All right. Here's what you actually have to do. You have to get out and inspect what you expect. Pricing right, you've got to see what the market is. You got to bring that back out in your environment, and then you got to coach to it. And so many times we tell people this is what you're going to do, and Kim kind of hit a nail on the head, is that we tell them, but we don't coach them, and therefore it doesn't stick. And you can't keep raising your prices to profitability, because you may serve one, but I'd rather serve 10.
Yeah. Great point. Stephen.
There is that fine line in between it. Mike's 100% right there. It can't just be in raise, and we get into this ugly cycle when we are just raising and we're not incorporating the team into the whys. How are they ever going to establish the value if they don't understand why we're changing prices? No matter which direction it is, they need to be able to understand it if they're going to be able to have those conversations with confidence with the guest. So where is that at? It's okay, here is what the fair market value is for our area. This is, we were too high here, we're too low here. This is what our new plan is, and this is why. Now the buy-in happens. The technicians don't care. They want their end of it. The dollars need to be explained to the advisors. We need to be able to get that full buy-in there with their understanding. This is what we're doing. This is why. And if they understand it, we're going to have less of the discounts. We're going to have less of those missing dollars that Kim was talking about. We're not going to see all of that just going right through and being siphoned out.
So it's taking that clarity of the data and then executing it with the why. Love it. Okay, Kim, how about you?
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with Mike and Stephen. It's a yes. I think, taking a lot of the subjectiveness out of when it talks about dollars, we can't make it based off emotions. We have to look at the data. That goes back to our VPG, goes back to our mystery shops. It's showing us what the market is performing at and where we can be or should be or where we need to go or adjust to. And it's important to look at that data and make true objective decisions. And then again, back to educating your teams on the why. If they understand the why, they can then execute and also make sure that they feel confident in what they're selling, because the more confident you feel, then you're selling not the service only, you're selling yourself. And the customer appreciates anyone they can have a connection with and understand that they're truly being honest with them about the pricing and what they need.
So it's really around that execution of improving profitability so that it drives retention and it drives buy-in from the team. So execution is the differentiator I heard from all three of you. So execution, not awareness, right? There's a difference between being aware, creating a strategy, and then executing on it. So everyone in this room, I know from all of our conversations, understands the challenges. We understand margin pressure, technician shortages, rising prices, really more demands from our customers in their guest experience, right? So what actually separates the stores that execute from the ones that don't? This is our last lightning round, and then Chad will be joining us back. So give me your thoughts. Stephen, let's start with you first.
Absolutely. The ones that are more successful are going to have the buy-in from their entire staff. You can tell that they're well coached. You can tell that they're a part of the conversation. The value of what they're presenting, whether it be the technician and what he's finding, or it being the advisor and what this is going to cost and where the value is on the repair of the service, it's going to all come in because they have a general buy-in to the whole process. They're understanding it. They're not just a peg. They're not just a number. It is the ones where they feel as a part of the team. And when they feel, I'm going to use the word again, when they feel valued, they're going to share that value with the guests.
Thank you, Stephen. Mike?
Everything that Stephen said is spot on.
You're going to go ditto check?
No. I think that the biggest thing that we miss is the transparency, and we got to be transparent, and we got to be transparent with our staff too. Our staff have to understand the why, and then we have to get out and make sure that they and watch them and then coach them in private, of course, but coach them as they engage with the guests and see what the response that the guest has, and are we on, or do we need to make an adjustment? But I think you got to have the value there.
Thank you. All right, Kim, bring us home in the next 30 seconds on your thoughts.
So I'm in agreement with Mike and Stephen. I think the difference between the ones that executes and the ones that don't are the ones that also practice and repeat, right? Once as you share this information with your team, you're not going to share it once. You're not going to share it twice. It takes many days to build habits, healthy habits. So making sure this is not something that is a one and done. It's an always conversation. And it's either one-on-one or as a group or smaller groups, but making sure this is a consistent, continuous conversation that doesn't die on one price change, but remains consistent throughout the entire time that teams are having conversations.
You guys have done an incredible job. Thank you so much. I think you just brought so much thought leadership there, Ted, in a short period of time. I really appreciate each and every one of you.
Nice job, Kim. Thank you so much. That was great information. Steve, wow. You guys unpacked a lot of info there. So That was great.
Good group.
Great group, right?
Great
And
group.
Mike Weldon. Yes. Handpicked by Maureen Martin, might I add.
They are incredible. You know, each time when we come together, we want to really kind of stretch and talk about things a little bit differently in the business and then how it ties together. Because I think we really understand how important the fixed ops profit engine is of a dealership. And you can't do it without all of the things that these incredible Mike, Stephen, and Kim just added to this panel. So, Ted, I really thank you on
Thank
behalf
you.
of Dynatron for the invitation to be here as always. And looking
Maureen.
forward to seeing you again soon at a pop up near you.
We're going to see Dynatron on the road for sure. We have
We
a
will
couple of
definitely
big
be on the
events coming up. I believe there's one in early June in Queens, New York at Paragon.
Yes.
Honda, June 10th at the Nilo Company in Sacramento. Mike, I think we're going to see you at that one. And Stephen, you're invited to that up in Northern California. We have a great fixed operations director panel coming in from all over the country, fixed ops directors. And then, of course, on the 12th of June, Maureen, DG, Del Gran Dealer Group. So
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Maureen, what's the best way for our audience to reach out if they have questions? They've heard a lot about Dynatron and their 20 groups. If they want more information, what's the best way?
My email is down here. And then, of course, my cell is 972-740-8165. You can also contact Ted or any of the team. We talk to each other literally all the time. So we're here for you and anything that you need. But I just want to thank our panelists again. You guys were incredible.
Yeah. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Mike Weldon.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks, Ted.
Thank you, Maureen. And great thanks to Dynatron Software and the panel here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.